Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. This classic flat lay picture was captured with a Phase 1 80 megapixel medium format camera. The massive dynamic range and supreme colour accuracy from the camera lend itself to this type of subject. The picture was lit with a single 200 watt LED continuous studio light in conjunction with a diffusion filter. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so this is the subject. So I've put all this fairly low down, not actually on the floor but not far off it, so that I can put a camera almost directly over the top of it. Okay, so that's the subject. So I mentioned the camera in the introduction, and this is the one that I'll be using. This is actually an IXA 180 Phase 1 medium format aerial camera, and this was kindly loaned to me by an aerial imaging company, so I'm very grateful for that. Okay, so this has a full-size medium format sensor built into the back of it, and unlike other Phase 1 cameras, you can't actually take the sensor unit off the camera. The whole thing is one unit. And on the front of this I have a Schneider 80mm 2.8 lens. Now the camera will be used in conjunction with Capture One software, so it's easy to see the results as we go along. And the software actually controls the camera. Okay, so to get the camera in something like the right position, I'm going to need to place a tripod just about here somewhere. There we are. So in this position, the tripod's going to be able to support the camera almost looking straight down, which is what I want. So let's just pop the camera on the top of that tripod. Now I've already placed a quick release plate on the bottom of the camera here so that it will click straight onto the tripod. There we go. Right, so the next thing to do would be to plug this into the software, and we can then take a test picture. Okay, there we go. So the software has recognized the camera, and these are the initial settings that I have on the camera. So it's set to 100 ISO, 1/30th of a second at f8. So just with the house lights, I'll just grab an image and we'll just see what we get. Okay, so you can see from that image that we are actually getting quite an exposure. It's maybe 1 stop under, 2 stops under, something like that. But there's quite a lot of light getting there from the house lights. So that will actually interfere with the light that we set. Okay, so time to do that then. So I'm going to use one of these. This is a 200 watt LED studio light. So I'm just going to place that about here somewhere. Something like that. And we'll turn that on. Now this has a daylight color temperature of 5600 Kelvin. And you can see that that has illuminated the subject reasonably well. Okay, so with that on, I'll grab that again. Okay, so that's improved the exposure, but as you can see, the shadows are really hard and the whole thing's a little harsh, not really the sort of lighting that I want. So I want to be able to soften all that down a bit. So in order to do that, I'm going to use some 216 diffusion material. Now this is just a plastic filter diffuser, and what I'm going to do with this is just pop it on a C-stand about here somewhere, like that. And I'll just get that reasonably close to the subject. So with that in something like the right position, we'll grab another image and just see what we get. Okay, well that's coming along quite nicely. it's very soft now. It's just gone the other way. If I go to the previous image, that's what we had before. That's what we've got now. It's possibly lacking a little in exposure as well. But I think that's the extent of what we can do with the house lights on. So the next thing to do would be to turn the house lights out. Okay, so with the house lights out, what I'll do is just grab another image and we'll see what difference it makes. And there you can immediately see the difference. This is what we had with the house lights on, and this is what we have with the house lights out. It looks like it's underexposed, but we've actually just got much more shadow. But you can actually see that the shadows are really soft. So the first thing to do would be to address the exposure. Now I think that's at least a stop under. So what I'm going to do is just alter the shutter speed by 1 stop. So it's at 30th at the moment. I'll put that on a 15th. We'll just grab that again. Okay, so that's improved the exposure quite nicely. But this is still a bit soft for me. I'd like it a little bit harder. So in order to make it a bit harder, what you can do with this type of light is just focus the beam a bit. So if I just alter the focusing arrangement here, and I'll just concentrate the beam into more of a spot on there, like that. There we are, that's looking okay. And now I'll grab that again. Okay, so the other consequence of doing that increased the efficiency of the system, so it's now a little overexposed. But you can now see that you've got some good definition in these shadows, which we didn't have before. So if I just take this exposure and just take that down a bit, so we'll put it back at a 30th and grab that again. There we are. So now we've got quite a lot of definition to these shadows. So that's what we had before, and that's what we've got now. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to check the colour accuracy. And for that, I'm going to use one of these colour checkers, and I'm just going to pop this in the scene just down here. And we can use that to calibrate the system. So I'll just grab an image with that in place. And now with that in place, I can set my white balance really accurately. There we go. So with that done, what I can do now is remove that from the scene, and we can just grab another image. Okay, so now we've got the colour accurate and I've got the type of shadow that I want. I'm just going to zoom in and we'll have a look at the focus. So this is 100%, and you can see that the background here is very well focused. It's very sharp. The foreground is ever so slightly soft. So what I'd like to do is just increase the depth of field. And the way to do that, of course, is to alter the aperture. So if I change the aperture from f8 to, say, f16, like so, that will give me a greater depth of field. But that's a 2-stop change, so I'll need to make that up. And the way to do it would be to change the shutter speed. So from a 30th to a 15th would be 1 stop, and then from a 15th to 7.5, we'll call it an 1/8, would be 2 stops. So this is our new settings. So with that, I'll grab another image and we'll see what we get. Okay, well, the exposure looks good. And I can just zoom in to 100%, and the background's good, and yes, the foreground's good as well. Excellent. Okay, so that's it for actually capturing the image. What I'm going to do now is go into Photoshop and just do the bare minimum of post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up the file of the image that I captured earlier. So the first thing to do, have a look around the image. So I'll just zoom in a little. So if I go to 100%, you get an idea of the amount of detail that the camera is capable of capturing. And the change in tones is very subtle and makes for a very good image. Okay, so we just go back out to full size. There we are. I think really all I need to do to this is crop it down, and that will do. So I'll just choose a crop. I'm going to use a specific ratio since I'm using the image just for video. And I'll just square it up ever so slightly. So maybe just bring the edges in a little bit. Just like that. There we are. So with this type of photography, it really is all about the way it's lit. And by using a 216 diffusion film between the light source and the subject, I've been able to fine-tune the shadows to do exactly what I want. And together with the huge dynamic range of the camera sensor, I've been able to capture a really nice, very subtle still life study. And I think that's turned out rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked watching how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.